Today we are going to do a fun project called paper bead making. And so these paper beads will be very easy to make, and when we get all of our paper beads made, we're going to turn them into jewelry. So paper bead making started in England, and it has also carried over to Africa and some other countries, but we are going to use the same technique of paper bead making today. So what you're going to need is plain white paper, and copy paper is just perfect. And you're going to need your pencil, a ruler, some scissors, and markers. You can use the wide markers if you would like. I like to use a combination of those and the thin line markers to get into the smaller spaces if we need to. So let's get started making our paper beads. If you'll turn your paper like this, landscape or horizontal, we're going to make some marks using our ruler. So if you will put your ruler at the edge of your paper on the inches side, and we're going to come over with our ruler right lined up at the edge, and we're going to make a mark at the 1 inch, 3 inches, 5, 7, 9, and finally 11. You'll notice that 11 is right at the edge of the paper, and that's fine. I just go ahead and put a little mark there just to say that I did it. And then we're going to come to the top of our paper, just a little bit down from the top edge. These lines don't need to be long at all. And this time we're doing even numbers. So we're going to put a mark at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Once you have your marks made on your edges of your paper, we are going to draw our lines. So start at the top left corner, and we're going to draw our first line from that corner down to the 1 inch mark on the bottom that we made. And then we're going to connect from that mark to the top one that we made at the 2 inch mark. And each time that you connect, try to use what we call good craftsmanship or neatness, so that your lines are neatly drawn. And where they connect, there shouldn't be a big gap in between, nor should it really overlap. So that's what I mean by neatness. So you continue drawing your lines from mark to mark, top to bottom. And one more. And you can just take your time, make sure that you are holding your ruler. Once I get my ruler positioned, I like to hold it in the middle, because sometimes when you're holding it down low and you start drawing, it tends to want to wiggle from side to side. So that's just a tip about positioning your ruler. Now that you have your triangles made, and you'll notice that you have multiple triangles, we are going to skip the ones on the very edges. So this one and this one we're going to skip. But we're going to begin using pattern to make the designs for what will be our beads. And you can just use your rainbow of colors that you have in your marker box. And if you're missing a color or two, that's okay. You can use what you've got. What I've done on the preliminary drawing that I've made is just showing you some patterns that you can use. You're always free to use your own patterns as well, but I am going to take you through the steps of how I drew these various patterns. So each triangle will become a bead once we get everything drawn and cut out and start to roll up our beads. So I think I'm going to I'll start with red, and I'm going to come into the first large triangle, not the one on the very edge, and I'm calling this pattern wavy. So I'm just doing some wavy lines. When you start to create your beads by cutting them and rolling them up, you will notice that anything that you draw is going to be covered a little bit through the rolling process. So you want to make sure that you do use a lot of this white space and don't leave very much of it blank. Okay, so I continue my wavy pattern. The good thing about the chiseled tip of the marker, or if you're using a thin marker, you can really get into these little tight spots of the triangle. And you just go all the way up until the tip top of your triangle. And then look and see if you did a good job. If there's any gaps or anything, you could fill those in a little bit better. And you have your first design done. So that's the first pattern. Now, pattern is the repetition of an art element. So the art element we're using now is line. The next one I'm going to do is just a pattern of diamond shapes. So I'm going to start at the wide end, and I'm going to make a line going this way, and then I'm going to form an X. And I'm going to keep going with that pattern from the lines that I've already created. On their ends, I'm starting new lines. And I'm using orange. You can use whatever color you would like. And if your design is slightly different, that is fine. These are just design suggestions. And I like to widen my line a little bit when it's in the widest part of the triangle. And then let them gradually get a little bit thinner as they come down to the smallest part. Okay, so that's my second pattern. And I think I will use yellow next. And this time I'm going to do zigzags. So I'll start on the small tip of the triangle first, and then my zigzags will get longer as I keep going. Okay, so my third pattern is complete. And I think for the next one, I will use green. And on this one, I'm going to use repeating diagonal lines. So notice how I started drawing diagonal lines right at the corner, and when I ended up at the opposite corner from left to right there, I'm going to switch, and I'm going to tilt my paper a little bit, and I'm going to go the other direction this time. Still doing diagonal lines, but in the opposite direction. And then once I have that area filled in, I'm going to turn my paper back straight, and I'm going to fill in this section with diagonal lines. And then see, I stop when I get to the bottom of the previous group that I did. Okay, and now it's time to go the other way again. All the way to the bottom tip. And that design is done. Okay, I am going to switch to blue. And this time I'm going to start on the large end, and I'm going to do these swirls. And you can do some big and some smaller, some medium size, some gigantic if you would like, some teeny tiny. And if you find a really teeny tiny spot that you can't fit one in, maybe just put a dot or put nothing. It's up to you. Of course, the big ones take up more space. And then you don't have to draw quite as many in that spot. As you're working and thinking about good craftsmanship, if you accidentally go outside of the line on the edge, it's no big deal, because when you cut these out, that will be cut off anyway. Don't want to go too far over the line though, because then it will interfere with your next design. And try to just enjoy the repetition of your pattern and just let it get relaxing to you, so that you don't feel like you're doing so much work, that you're just getting into the rhythm of your pattern. For the next one, I'm going to do what I call rain. So I'm going to use gray just because that's the choice of color I like. And I am going to just draw. I'm just kind of letting the marker do these lines that run out. So they start and then they just fade out. And that's why I call it rain, because as it comes down, it reminds me of rain. Maybe it reminds you of something else other than rain, but that's just what comes to mind. Now, this is just a little extra thing. If you ever have markers that are about to run out, don't throw them away, because in this pattern, since I'm using gray, what if I go in with a marker that's getting much lighter and just put a few faded ones in there just for interest. And also you can actually paint with old markers, so don't throw these away. And then I think I'm going to keep with the neutral theme for the next one and do brown. If you have another color in mind that you would prefer to use, that is fine. So this time I'm going to do some wide diagonal lines all the way up this time, instead of making X's or different from this green one that I did earlier. So I'm going to just do the diagonals first, all the way to the tip top. Okay, and then I'm going to pick a point. So I'm going to start here, and then I'm going to go the opposite way. And again, you'll notice a rhythm in your pattern that you like, And yours may be a little different than mine or anyone else's, and that is fine. Okay, so that one was easy enough. And I think I'm going to use purple for the next one. And for this one, I'm going to do big, wide curves. So I'm kind of turning my long triangle into sort of a cone shape with these curves. All the way down to the tip. And then I'm going to go in between every other space and color it in. Okay, I think for the next one I'm going to do polka dots, and this time I'm going to use pink polka dots. So I'm going to do some large, medium, and small. And you can even let some appear to go off the edge. Big, medium, and small ones there also. You want to use a lot of your white space without leaving a bunch of space empty. Because empty spaces won't look as interesting on your final beads. You want them to be colorful and patterned. Are you finding that you like one of your designs the best now that you have done, I think, 9? So I'm going to let you freely choose whatever you want to do for this last one. Remember, you do not have to color in the 2 end ones that are skinnier, but go ahead and use your own free choice on this one. And so that's what I wanted us to accomplish today, was just doing our patterns and designs for our paper beads. And then next time we will actually cut these out and make our own paper beads.